Watchers in the Fourth Dimension.
Hello, I'm the Doctor, and this is my maid, Mabel.
And it's not every day a chap comes across a pretty girl who's interested in quantum theory.
Toodle pip, Reginald.
Hello and welcome to a bonus episode of Watchers in the Fourth Dimension. I'm Anthony.
I'm Julie.
And I'm Riley.
And it's time for our obligatory Big Finish bonus episode in which we encounter a one-time winner of the Upper Class Twit of the Year award. That's right, we're talking about the Auntie Matter, which is set just after the Armageddon Factor, making it a perfect story for us to talk about this season. This one is written by Jonathan Morris, who has written an enormous amount of Doctor Who, in both prose and audio. The scripts to this story are broadly a parody and homage to the works of P.G. Wodehouse, notably the Jeeves and Wooster series. Like Bertie Wooster, Reginald is mentally negligible, has a number of aunts, and many of the stories revolve around proposals of marriage. Lady Florence Cray and Madeline Bassett are both regular characters in Jeeves and Wooster, and several stories are set in Bassett Hall. Meanwhile, the name Lady Ligeia Bassett is a reference to the Edgar Allan Poe story Ligeia, in which the protagonist's long-lost love comes back from the dead and possesses the body of the protagonist's new wife. The Auntie Matter was recorded on the 18th of July 2011. It was directed by Ken Bentley, who has directed a lot for Big Finish, but actually nothing we've listened to before for the podcast. Providing sound and music, we have Howard Carter, who has also done a lot for Big Finish, but like Ken Bentley, nothing we've actually discussed before. And last but not least, this was produced by David Richardson, who produced most of Big Finish's output since 2007. On one last sad note, while this was recorded in July 2011, it wasn't released until January 2013. Very sadly, Mary Tamm passed away from cancer in July 2012, 6 months before this was released, making this a posthumous release for her. There's a very touching little tribute to her as one of the extras on the audio, and that's well worth a listen. See, Julie, I do sometimes listen to them. Now that I've massively brought the mood down, let's talk about the Auntie Matter.
First off, when we do these Big Finish episodes, I don't look into it at all. I just get the file and listen. And without really paying attention, I was a little confused that the antimatter monster from Planet of Evil did not make an appearance.
I think we're all relieved.
It's really funny, Riley, that you say that, because I barely registered the name of this when I got it. I just clicked on the first one and didn't really pay attention to the name. And then I looked up what the name of it was and I was like, oh, how fitting. So go me, I guess. I have two things to say before we really get started. So one, really knowing the whole PG Wodehouse or P something Wodehouse.
PG Wodehouse, yep.
Yeah. If I had known really about any of that, I probably would have understood that it was trying to parody it a little bit, because I am not super familiar with them, at least by that name. I have probably seen stuff that's based off of it. So that kind of went over my head a bit, not gonna lie. And then another thing that we normally talk about with Big Finish is that the music was a bit more understated than I'm used to for Big Finish.
Yes, absolutely. But the sound effects were taking a pretty prominent part here.
Just to hit on your points about not really having read any Wodehouse, Julie, I think all that you really need to know about it is posh idiots.
Oh, okay. Perfect.
Yeah, that's the gist.
Reggie is a... Oh,
all right. My question about Reggie is this. How did everyone else feel about him? I started off and felt, okay, this is going to be a slog. But towards the end, I fully embraced him as a humorous character, and I enjoyed how much I loved laughing at him and how stupid he was.
Yeah, actually, I felt very similar. At the beginning, I was like, good God, this guy. And over the course of it, yes, he's an idiot, but he's a well-meaning idiot who's being manipulated by an alien, and all he really wants is love.
Right.
And I'm going to skip right to the end here, but by the time he's like, you know what, I fall in love with a kitchen maid and fucking let people talk, I'm like, good for you, bro.
I think one thing that helps me is I pretty much it's slightly headcanon, but also I think is actually what has also been happening is that the number of times his brain has been wiped, I think makes him an idiot.
Oh, I love that theory.
I don't know who did that. I feel like that may have been a Rick and Morty bit, like a mind eraser, and they do it too many times and it just makes their intelligence drop. That's pretty funny. I love that concept.
That's fantastic.
Yes. I thought as I grew into enjoying the character of Reggie and his full upper class twitness, I couldn't help but think, of course, this role would be below him. No offense to the Big Finish actors, but Hugh Laurie doing this part would have been absolutely amazing.
Yeah, and actually, since you mentioned that, the TV show Jeeves and Wooster, Hugh Laurie was, of course, in that. That was Hugh Laurie and Stephen Fry.
Right.
That makes a lot of sense. And actually, what's funny, you talk about that, another kind of link I would like to make, Grenville.
Yes.
All right? Hear me out. Reminds me of Blackadder.
A little bit, yeah. I can see that.
Like, just the mannerism of, like, the dry snarkiness. Like, in season 3 of Blackadder, with Hugh Laurie, the idiot king.
Right.
That's what it really reminded me of.
It's so funny you mentioned that, Julie, because I'm going to try to perform this. There was a line of dialogue in here where I heard it and I said, that sounds exactly like something that Lord Flashheart will say. So let me try. She's an absolute corker in the first blush of womanhood, head packed with brains and liberty endowed with oomph, woof.
Well, I'm not quite sure what that accent was, Riley. But 10 out of 10 for effort.
Thank you. It was steering towards Australia, and I must have seen Furiosa recently.
There was a little Scottish in there too. It was quite impressive. But just going back to Hugh Laurie and the TV version of Jeeves and Wooster. So Hugh Laurie was Bertie Wooster, who Reggie is clearly based off of. And Stephen Fry was Jeeves, his valet. So Grenville is really the Stephen Fry character, effectively.
Now, there was a brief moment in time when I couldn't quite understand the pronunciation of Grenville and thought it was Grendel. And I'm like, what? Really? We're actually going to, like, retcon when Grendel gets introduced? And then I was like, oh, no, that's not what's happening here. So sorry, everyone.
Speaking of names, did anyone else get a kick out of Bassett on Hamble? I don't know why. Any English name, location name, with the so-and-so on so-and-so, I find so charming, yet also silly. And particularly Bassett on Hamble, which I did look up. I don't think that exists.
No, I don't think it does either. I mean, you know, Britain has some wonderful place names.
Another thing that happened, also, we're all over the place and I love it. We get the very long introduction to Reggie and Florence and all of that. It takes forever, not gonna lie. Then we finally get to the TARDIS. Okay, cool. When Romana called just Canine the dog, I was like, how dare you? And then I started to come to the realization that this wasn't at the end of their adventure. This was towards the beginning, and I felt a little bit better about it. Unless I completely missed that. Was it at the end? Please don't tell me it was at the end, because if she called K9 the dog at the end of their adventure, I'm going to be kind of mad at Romana.
This is set after the Armageddon Factor.
Oh.
Are you?
Wow.
Nope. Sorry.
Because that's what K9 is doing. He's leading the TARDIS on this 1,000-stop jaunt to try and shake the Black Guardian.
They could have been shaking the Black Guardian even sooner, but okay. I don't like her calling K9 the dog.
Yeah, so this was the first of a full season of the Fourth Doctor audios, and it's the only one with Mary Tamm, and this is effectively season 16 and a half.
Speaking of the K9 plot, wouldn't that have been wonderful just for an occasional cut back to him leading the Black Guardian around on these 1,000 stops around the universe? I think that would have been a lot of fun. Just a good little humorous cut. Very quick, wouldn't even take like 7 seconds.
If this had been made as part of an actual 4-part Doctor Who serial, yes, that would definitely have been some of the filler. 100%. I guess with this, the big thing here is it's a relatively simple storyline. There's an alien trying to prolong her life by possessing the bodies of upper-class Earth women.
I have a question. Sorry.
Okay.
It's very early to have this question, but at the end of this, we find out there are 12 women that she has killed. How have they not started to think, hey, what has happened to these 12 women that disappeared?
Don't ask awkward questions, Julie.
Oh, I hate it.
I was also confused by the other side of that question is, how old is Reggie? So how often does the Aunt Lady Florence Bassett need a body?
Yeah, that's a great question as well.
Well, I think it was accelerating, wasn't it?
I guess that's the only possibility.
Yes, it was accelerating. But yeah, my assumption had been that it should be a bit longer than needing 12. Unless,
Right.
of course, he had been as a kid, because he said he was raised by a series of aunts, so maybe they were the nannies.
Maybe. I just think it would have been really funny if Reggie's out there trying to pull and he's like 70 years old and he's trying to pull young women. It's just.
And even like the nannies makes more sense, and I can visualize it better because nannies, at least in theory, are more likely to come and go than fiancés.
Right. Yeah, so my assumption is initially it was the nannies, and then later on, as he reached maturity, it flipped to romantic interests.
But then my question is he got sent to boarding school. So when he was in boarding school, what did she do?
Well, maybe at that time, if it's accelerating, they lasted long enough between terms for it to be okay. I'm headcanoning pretty heavily here and trying to make this work. So please forgive me as I really stretch this beyond all credulity.
Sorry.
As me and Julie, we're just like poke, 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 poke.
I mean, you're poking it apart so well.
Oh, thank you.
Now, the thing is I enjoyed this.
Yes.
I really did. It's just, there are still a lot of things to poke at.
Right.
I definitely think this is one where it's enjoy it for what it is and don't look at it too closely.
That's exactly what it is. I would like to point out, and I mentioned it earlier, a very strong positive was the sound effects. I really enjoy the job they did where they made a change to the sound of the dialogue. And without even saying anything, you knew, oh, it has shifted. Someone is listening in through a device. You just automatically knew that by the sound change they made. And I think that was wonderful.
I will say one thing. So this is one of the few that I've listened to just on my laptop as opposed with headphones on. And I will say that took away from it a little bit because when they were being listened to through a device, they were very quiet.
Yeah.
So I will say that, but I liked the effect itself. I think that was well done. And probably if I listened with my headphones, it would have been a lot better. So a little bit on me.
I feel like with Big Finish, it always needs to be headphones.
Yeah.
It just fills the atmosphere more. I don't know. Maybe there's some low frequencies they put in there to try to make the whole thing sound fuller to your ear when you have headphones on. I don't know. I am not an audio engineer. I have a question regarding Reggie, and I am worried that this question may be misconstrued as being offensive. I don't believe it is. I am literally ignorant. So I am not making this question out of having a belief on one side of this debate or other. I am just curious. And I have to ask Anthony because he's the person who knows English accents. Anthony.
Yes.
Reggie, when he speaks, sometimes moves his R's and W's, mixes them.
Yeah, he has a speech impediment.
I did not know. I have heard other English people do that, and I did not know if that was qualified as an impediment or just a specific type of accent or just something that was considered not an impediment.
No, that's definitely a speech impediment.
Okay. Just wanted to know.
How dare you, sir?
I know. I'm sure there might be some listeners that have that accent or have that way of speaking. I don't want to say you have an impediment. I don't know if you do. That may sound totally fine. I don't know. I'm just curious.
Yeah, it's all good.
So we have Romana being very mean to Earth, let's be honest. She's very judgmental about the 1920s. Okay, Romana, we get it. We're a little bit behind the times. Calm your shit. But then, when she's in the shop and Reggie is there, does she actually fall for it?
I think she's just excited that, in her perception, she did not expect to bump into a human being in this time period that would be able to converse with her or show a similar interest in the things that she was interested in. Even though, of course, he was fronting.
He couldn't even say the words right. So, like, how could you
I see
not
what you mean.
notice
I
that?
think she was just bored. I think she was just bored and was like, you know what? Let's just have fun with this.
I agree. And I love Romana. I enjoyed her on the show, but she does seem a bit snooty sometimes. Just a little.
Mm-hmm. But, you know, she had fun with it.
Oh, it sounded like she was having a blast. I thought she sounded great.
Mm-hmm.
Especially coming to find out that she was ill while they recorded. That doesn't come across at all.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, total pro. She sounded completely fine.
Yeah.
Did a good performance.
She actually, to me, didn't sound that much older than she sounded in the actual show.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Tom Baker sounds audibly older.
Yes.
Yes. Can we discuss, and sorry to continue poking holes, Anthony. I guess this isn't a whole poke because it does make sense plot-wise. I just felt that it was kind of a cop-out. Where one cliffhanger is resolved by the doctor literally pulling the plug. And I thought, that's it? Couldn't we just come up with some technobabble here to resolve this instead of just, yeah, there was the plug, I just pulled it out. That means that any sort of tension that was there was really no tension at all if you could just pull the plug.
I kind of love it.
Oh, really? Okay.
Well, when the whole thing is meant to be a little bit of a parody and meant to be a little bit silly, to me it kind of works. If they're like, yep, we're just going to yank the plug and boom, done and dusted. I don't know. Maybe I'm oversimplifying it. I kind of like that.
It's better than some convoluted other thing that they probably could have come up with, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes Big Finish, because of their ability to just say, hey, we don't have to show everything so we can get a little bit outlandish. We didn't go that route this time.
Right.
I want to talk about the androids here for a second.
Yes.
So we've got Grenville and we've got Diggory, right? And they look the same?
Yeah.
So, one, are there more of them? How many are there? Are there just a whole bunch of random androids that look the same? Like 30 of them running around on this estate?
Well, I think the assumption is it's just the two of them. Otherwise, we would have seen more of them because they would have been helping her.
This was also what led me to first think that maybe we were talking about Grendel because there were androids involved. But again, I was wrong. I just can't hear pronunciation very well, apparently.
Well, if you're listening on tinny laptop speakers as well. Yeah, I mean, coming off of season 16, it does come across that way as being, well, it's a bit soon to have more androids.
Well, I thought they were wonderful. I enjoyed their personalities. I particularly enjoyed how hilarious it was when Mabel pushed Grendel into the water, and as she is having dialogue, you can hear the sound of him drowning in the background, which was so damn funny. Oh my God.
I'm not gonna lie, I think that was the highlight of the entire story for me, because you have the doctor telling her, oh, it's not safe for you. You need to go into town. The doctor tries to sideline her, sends her off into town. And I'm like, well, that's no fun. Like, we had another woman and you're just going to sideline her. And then immediately she's just like, I'm going to tackle somebody. I'm like, this is amazing. Right here. I love it.
Yeah, that was a really good moment.
I was hoping for more of Mabel. Reggie was good for comic relief. And I know his character was more involved because it was his fake aunt that was our antagonist here. But I felt Mabel should have had a little bit more. Maybe a little bit more of her personality would have been great.
I mean, I enjoyed what we got of her. And I really loved kind of how the doctor was like, congratulations, you're my companion now.
I don't know. I feel like I got a few little things from Mabel. Like her comment about this isn't the weirdest thing that I've seen, because I was like, well, what have you seen then if this isn't the weirdest one? I really want to know, Mabel. What's your story?
And with the doctor saying, you're a companion now, his little brief description of the rules of the road, so to speak, for being a companion was very concise and accurate. I wonder if that's just kind of shorthand for Doctor Who writers.
I kind of wish, if this is Big Finish, maybe wish is the wrong word, but I'm kind of surprised that Big Finish haven't done a Reggie and Mabel spin-off.
I think Reggie is just there for comic relief. I don't know if we could do a whole thing with him being in a more serious role.
Yeah.
The Big Finish, Reggie and Mabel wedding episode.
They wonder who the fuck the 9th Doctor is when he shows up with... Wait, no, it's Big Finish. They wonder who the hell the 7th Doctor is when he inexplicably shows up with River Song and Jackie Tyler.
It's why the hell not?
Yeah.
I do like when the Doctor, him and Mabel got cornered. He was able to get Mabel away, but the Doctor is still there. And he's like, sometimes the screwdriver is mightier than the sword. Okay. I mean, in very particular times, yes. Okay, fine, Doctor, but not all the time, buddy. Sorry. That part was really fun when he was just like, I can mess with you with my little sonic screwdriver. But, we also love how that gets used all the time.
Right. I believe the highlight for me in regards to the Doctor's role in this Big Finish is at the very end when he is speaking to the aunt and she reveals who she really is. And then she says, blah, 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 of the Valdrax. And then the Doctor says, the Valdrax? And she says, you've heard of us? No.
Yeah.
That's very 4th Doctor.
Very Baker. It was note perfect there. I really enjoyed that.
I think that's one of the great things is these writers really understand the characters and how to write for them.
Yes.
So, just works so well.
But also, remember, if you listen to those interviews, it was mentioned that every once in a while, Tom would add a few things or suggest a few things, and they did go with it sometimes. Yeah. So that also helps.
Absolutely. So we're kind of meandering around this quite significantly. We haven't talked a huge amount about the plot because it's so simple. I think
it's very simple.
Yeah, it kind of does the job. I did like the aunt when she announced her name, Zenobia Brabazon, Last of the Valdrax, and we've already talked about the Doctor's reaction, but to me, Zenobia Brabazon, that sounds very Douglas Adams.
Oh, yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think they were deliberately doing that given that at this time in the show, Douglas Adams would have been started during this period. So, yeah. Firstly, we wrap up the story, obviously, with Zenobia Brabazon being defeated as she crumbles to dust or whatever happens to her. And Reggie becomes Lord Bassett. He goes after Mabel, who, he has no issue with her being a kitchen maid and says, screw those rich assholes who are going to judge us for this. We'll let them talk. And as Romana's leaving, Reggie says toodle pip, which is wonderfully posh. No one actually says that.
But the best part...
Yes.
...is the Doctor and Romana figuring out that the other one was involved and they never met each other.
Absolutely. And they both up until that point thought they did it single-handedly.
Oh, it was so good. That was a really fun way to end it.
And the thing I really enjoyed about that was it reminded me of my comments about Androids of Terra, where I mentioned that I thought it would have been much better if, in that story, the Doctor and Romana were strategizing against each other, working on two opposite sides, those two sides being the one aiming for the crown. And I got a little bit of taste of that with this ending here, which I really enjoyed.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, I think we've probably... beaten this one to death as much as we can. So let's go ahead and rate this one. And I'm happy to kick us off. Overall, I think this one was a lot of fun. Nothing too serious. It's not amazing. It's certainly not the best I've ever heard, but it's enjoyable. I quite like the characters. They are a wonderful send-up of the Upper Class Twit and then the characters in Jeeves and Wooster. This isn't meant to be serious. It is just meant to be a lot of fun. And that's exactly what it delivered. So for me, this is a 7 Upper Class Twits out of 10. Julie, what are you thinking?
I think I agree for the most part, right? It's simple, but it's executed so well. And there are certain things that I really did enjoy, especially... when Mabel gets to kick ass a little bit. I thought that was really fun. And at least Reggie grew on me and I was able to headcanon a little bit as to how big of an idiot he was, because otherwise I think I would have gone a little bit crazy, even though this was one of the shorter Big Finishes that we've done in a while.
Mm-hmm.
So I am also going to give it 7 look-alike androids out of 10.
All right, Riley, take it away.
This is quite enjoyable. It's a funny, silly romp. A well-paced, short, 1 hour bit of jokes and silliness. I think it was great. There aren't many complaints. I, of course, would have preferred maybe something a little bit deeper, but if you're going to do an hour and you're going to make jokes, this pretty much hits the mark that it's aiming for. So I'm going to give it 8 thingities in my thingity out of 10.
Love that. Love that. Well, I think we all enjoyed it. That brings us to the end of this Big Finish bonus episode. If everything goes to plan, the next thing you should hear from us is our season retrospective, but who knows, we might put this out afterwards, in which case it'll be Destiny of the Daleks. It'll be a surprise for you. Anyway, we're going to say goodnight to you. As always, thank you so very much for listening, and of course, until next time, have a good one. You have been listening to Watchers in the Fourth Dimension with Julie Philippek, Riley Schreck, and myself, Anthony Williams. This bonus episode, Upper Class Twit of the Year, was recorded on Wednesday the 3rd of July 2024. If this is your first time listening in, all of our previous episodes are available through your favourite podcasting app. You can interact with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Watchers4D, and you can also email us at watchers4d@gmail.com. If you're enjoying the show, please do subscribe and leave us a review or rating on your favourite podcasting app. All of those things really do help the show. And always remember, sometimes it's the plot holes that make it fun.